this might be a bit of a strange video. The idea is that I'm trying to answer a question that I've been getting from a few different places, and the question is kind of, does the Iridium feel like an amp in the room, or does it have an amp in the room kind of feel? So this to me is a bit of a slightly odd question, because it's different scenarios. If you're using a Kemper, you're using an Iridium, you're using a Helix or an HX Stomp, you're going to be going via a different signal chain, and it's kind of a different concept to using an amp. You know, you're probably going to be going straight into a PA system of some kind, or a monitor. Yeah, whereas with an amp it's literally just there with you. I guess what would be fairer to compare would be if you were to compare the Iridium or HX Stomp and then a mic'd amp, but you know, in isolation. You know, do those things stack up? And I think there's been numerous tests and stuff where you can't really tell the difference. So I just wanted to, so I've got a room mic here, and I've got the Iridium about the same volume as my Mezzo Mark 525, and I'm just going to try some clean stuff and so that's the Iridium, and that's kind of at about talking volume, maybe a bit louder, and that's kind of the volume that I'm guessing most of us at home can push things to. Now here's the amp at a comparable volume. That kind of volume, I feel like I'm getting slightly more bass response from the amp, but that might just be a proximity to speaker kind of thing, difference in preamps or whatever. But I guess generally a guitar speaker is going to be around 12 inches versus a typical monitor setup, you know, might be anywhere between 3 and 6 inches, I guess. So there's going to be a difference there in the amount of bass that they're pushing out, unless you're dealing with a sub. In terms of connectedness to my playing, I feel like they're kind of both there. It's hard to determine whether there are kind of, you know, are there big differences? I'm not really sure that there are. Let's try a bit more of a drivey kind of tone. really comparable amps. There's nothing really in common here, but it's just so maybe something about an amp, or this particular amp, it feels slightly more smooth in the high end, maybe. But yeah, I feel like I can still connect with either device. But I also know that this is an amp which has been designed to kind of be usable at home volumes, and it's actually got a master volume which does stuff, whereas I know on some of the Fender and Vox type of amps, often that volume control's pretty unforgiving, and it's either a whisper quiet or actually kind of stage volume, and for home that's generally not much use. I've had a Fender Blues Deluxe, for instance, and that was crazy. You know, even on one on the volume you've got a lot of volume and too much for home use. So I guess I'm just going to drop this dog down. So I'm playing at a volume here where generally you're not going to get the kind of feedback and stuff that you can get at stage volume from a valve amp. And I think maybe that is what people are talking about when they talk about, you know, a crank valve amp reacts like nothing else. I think maybe you're talking about the way that notes sustain that bit longer because it's starting to create a feedback loop. At bedroom volumes, generally you're not going to get that kind of thing happening anyway. So to me there's not a big difference at bedroom volumes between an amp or modelling, if it's good modelling. So the question then becomes, what are you buying the device for? You know, if you're really looking for an amp in the room type feel, then is there a reason that you're not getting an amp? I think the reason that you might go for modelling in general is because you want a consistent sound straight to whatever device you're using. So for instance, I like modelling because I can set up and I can go into headphones, I can go straight to my recording, and I know that I can get a fairly decent tone quite quickly, and then I can just focus on playing. When you're miking up an amp, it's a different kind of scenario. Is it going to be too loud for the house at that time? You know, you're going to be waking up dogs, there's one. And then also, are there other rattles and noises happening? You know, is a dog about to bark? Another question is, if you've got the amp in the room, sometimes it's going to take you a bit of trial and error to find if you've got a nice spot for recording. So yeah, the amp in the room might sound great, but most of us know that if you're miking an amp in a room, it doesn't sound the same as what you think it's going to sound like. It's often a lot more brittle when you get the mic right up close. You know, what type of mic have you got? Do you have access to lots of different mics? Do you have access to a nice preamp? All of these questions, which I think on balance is why people then might make the choice to go for modelling. Myself, I've got loads of nice amps from Mesa Boogie, Electrodyne, Mark 525 and Nomad, and all which are great, and I take out and play them in clubs and pubs or whatever, and I really enjoy that experience and I prefer that. But on a function gig where you're going in ears, oftentimes a sound engineer can make your amp sound really bad in your ears, and at that point you might as well be playing through anything. So yeah, it's a weird one. So I think the conclusion is, does it sound like an amp in a room? No. Can it sound like an amp in a room? Yes. Can it sound like an amp recorded? Absolutely. Does it sound like good amps recorded? Yes, the Iridium does. Does the Helix? Yes. Does the Kemper? Yes. But really it's down to you, you know, if you're thinking, should I be buying an Iridium, should I be buying a modelling device? Well, what are you using it for? Is there a reason why you don't want to use an amp in the room anymore? And if you've got good reasons, then it makes sense to buy one. But if you're umming and ahhing, then the other factor is, do you have a good monitoring setup to be listening to your Iridium, your Kemper or your HX Stomp? Because my Mesa Boogie, I know that they've got, you know, a 90 watt speaker in there which is in a birch cabinet and meticulously engineered and all this stuff, and it's going to sound good. Often when you're using computer speakers or something, or headphones, you know, it's not going to sound anywhere near the same. There's not the amount of craft that's gone into that. So if you've got good monitor speakers, personally I don't use anything particularly expensive. I've got JBL LSR 305s, but good monitor speakers can, well, I mean, they'll make or break the product for you. Whatever you're using. Yeah, and the same with a good PA or a bad PA or a badly mixed guitar. You know, if they scoop off loads at the low end, then it's gonna, all the feel will go. Yeah.